Once upon a time, deep in the heart of Europe, during the Middle Ages, a bustling and robust society thrived. At the center of this society, the underpinning of the whole economy, were the medieval peasants. The average person in the village, working the land, producing food, and providing labor, was a key piece of the societal puzzle. In understanding them, we unravel the intricate threads of a system that has shaped Western culture to its core. Our exploration takes us to their world, a world filled with hardship, struggle, and surprisingly, moments of joy, their lives echoing through the centuries. The dawn of every day saw the medieval peasant rise with the sun, for there was work to be done, and daylight was the only available illumination. As his eyes adjusted to the soft light, he'd rise from a bed of straw, and his dreams would be swallowed by the reality of a hard day's work. The medieval peasant's day was dictated by the rise and fall of the sun, so with the dawn, their toil began. The air was thick with the smell of livestock, dirt, and smoke, the odor of life and survival in these times. In the heart of the peasant's home, the fire would flicker and dance, providing the only source of heat against the chill of the morning. Breakfast was frugal, often a hunk of bread or pottage, a sort of stew that was kept over the fire to which they would add what they could, perhaps some vegetables, or on a good day, a small piece of meat. This staple meal, with slight variations, was the fuel for the heavy manual labor that lay ahead. Dressed in simple, coarse clothing, usually made of wool or linen, the peasant would venture out into the fields. Clothing was practical and hard-wearing, designed to endure the toil of a working life. They wore what they could afford and what could keep them warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There was no room for vanity. Their attire was purely for survival. Their work was the lifeblood of the feudal system. The land they tilled and the crops they harvested belonged to the local lord, a noble who owned and oversaw the village. In return for their service, the peasant was granted a small piece of land to grow food for their own consumption. But even that was not theirs to keep entirely. A portion had to be given to the church as a tithe, a tenth of their produce. The work was back-breaking. Whether it was plowing, sowing, or harvesting, the fields were demanding. Each season brought with it its own challenges. The plow, the most common tool of the peasant, was a cumbersome and heavy instrument, yet it was vital for preparing the fields for sowing. The majority of the day was spent toiling in the fields, from the early morning light till the setting sun signaled the end of another labor-intensive day. Food was a constant worry for the medieval peasant. A bad harvest could spell disaster for a family or even a whole village. As a result, they would grow a variety of crops to safeguard against potential crop failure. Even so, their diet was simple. Bread, pottage, and ale were the staples, with meat being a rare luxury. Despite the hardships, there were moments of joy around meals, as families gathered together, sharing stories and the warmth of human companionship. Life was not only about work for the medieval peasant, there was also the church. Religion played a fundamental role in their lives, offering hope and a sense of purpose. Every Sunday, the tolling of the church bells would call them to Mass, where they would listen to the priest and seek solace in their faith. Even if the Latin words were beyond their comprehension, the rituals and the sense of community provided comfort. Medieval peasants lived in a world where the supernatural was just as real as the physical. Fear of the unknown was a powerful motivator, as the peasants believed in a pantheon of saints and also in the existence of witches and demons. The church and the local lord offered protection from these unseen threats, reinforcing their roles in the societal hierarchy. Peasants were not merely the workforce of the feudal society, they were also its soldiers. When the call to arms came, it was the peasant who had to leave his plow and take up the sword. They formed the bulk of medieval armies, untrained but willing, driven by a sense of duty and the promise of plunder. Contrary to what we might expect, there were times of merriment and celebration too. Festivals and holidays, particularly those associated with the church, were events that broke the monotony of the peasant's daily routine. During such times, they could drink, dance, and for a brief moment, escape the relentless toil of their lives. But life was short. Disease was a constant companion in the cramped and unsanitary conditions in which the medieval peasant lived. Plagues, such as the infamous Black Death, swept through villages, decimating populations. Famine, too, was a frequent visitor, its shadow falling heavily on bad harvest years. Despite the hardships and challenges, there was a sense of communal living, of being part of a greater whole. The village was a community where everyone knew everyone else. There were disputes, as in any society, but there was also a profound interdependence. They relied on each other for survival, for help in times of need, and for companionship in a world that was otherwise harsh and unforgiving. In death, as in life, the peasant was part of the community. The church offered the promise of salvation, and the ritual of the last rites ensured a passage to the afterlife. The body was buried in the local churchyard, and the soul's journey watched over by the same community the peasant had lived among. Thus was the life of a medieval peasant, a life of hardship and toil, yet also of resilience and community. It was a life lived in the shadow of feudal lords and the church, dictated by the rhythms of the seasons and the land. It was a hard life and a dirty life, but it was a life that kept the cogs of society turning, shaping the world as we know it today. In their struggles and joys, in their faith and fears, the medieval peasant is a mirror to our own humanity. They are a testament to human resilience, a testament to our ability to endure, to find joy in the smallest of things, and to hope, always to hope, even in the face of the harshest of realities. In understanding them, we understand a piece of ourselves and the journey that has led us to where we are today.